Hi, I'm Ka, and I used to think ambition was something my family respected, until the day they handed my sister the luxury penthouse I helped pay for and told me I was too intense to live with. They drained my savings behind my back, forged my name on legal docs, and called it love. But the moment they laughed at me across that dinner table, I stopped being their silence. Now, I'm not the threat, I'm the consequence. So tell me, what would you have done if your own family forged your signature to give your future to someone else? Before we dive in, what time are you listening to this, and where from? Drop it in the comments. Let's see how far the truth travels. I remember thinking it was strange that they wanted to have a family dinner. No birthdays, no holidays, no specific occasion, just a simple invitation from my mother, sent through a text at 7:42 a.m. on a Wednesday. Come for dinner Friday, honey. Just us. 6 p.m. For a moment, I let myself hope. Maybe they were ready to recognize me for who I had become. Maybe they'd finally say the words I used to crave. We're proud of you. By Friday afternoon, I was parked outside their Houston home with a cheesecake from that little French bakery Mom loved, a bottle of wine, and a gift bag with something personal. Inside was a music box, small, silver, engraved with my name. I'd found it last week in a storage box, cleaned it, had it repaired. It used to sit on my childhood dresser playing a lullaby I barely remembered the name of. It felt like a peace offering. Something soft to bridge what years of silence couldn't. When I walked in, the dining table was already set. Candles. Fresh tulips. Mom in one of her silk blouses. Dad poured wine. And Seraphine was perched at the end of the table like she owned it, hair perfectly curled, that glassy smile she always wore when she was about to win something. Ka. Mom greeted, lips brushing my cheek, already distracted. You look tired. Are you working too much again? I just smiled and handed her the cheesecake. From Meline's. Like you like. Oh, sweet girl, she replied, her tone already shifting. That sweet girl had 1,000 meanings with her. Today, it felt like dismissal wrapped in frosting. We sat. Talked weather, Houston traffic, Seraphine's recent PR campaign for a mayoral candidate. I chimed in where I could, but mostly, I listened. The same way I had all my life. Then came the announcement. Dad set down his fork with the kind of casual finality that warned something rehearsed was coming. We gave Seraphine the penthouse downtown. I blinked. The penthouse? You mean the one on Kirby? Yes, the Kirby Tower unit, Mom added brightly. It's just perfect for her image. You should see the view from the 31st floor. Breathtaking. She deserves it, Seraphine chirped. My job needs a certain appearance. Optics matter. Especially with charity events. My mind ran blank for a beat. I searched for the part where they'd explain the reasoning. Some logic. Anything. Mom leaned forward, eyes full of sincerity that felt like mockery. You know how you love your independence, Ka. You've always been different. Driven. Too ambitious for these things. And your apartment suits you, close to your startup hub, right? Dad chuckled, swirling his wine. We figured you'd rather invest in yourself. I didn't respond. My hands sat folded in my lap, nails digging into the side of my thumb. I mean, you're always off doing your own thing, Seraphine added with a practiced laugh. But I'll make sure you can visit when I host mixers or fundraisers. You'll love the balcony. That was the moment I realized this wasn't thoughtless. It was deliberate. They'd planned it. Waited for me to sit down. To bring dessert. To smile, just to blindside me. I looked at Seraphine. Her smile didn't waver. She wasn't being generous. She was asserting rank. I excused myself a few bites into dessert. Told them I had an early meeting. No one protested as I grabbed my coat from the hallway. Mom followed, her tone still light. Don't forget to thank your sister. She suggested we include you tonight. The words landed like a slap. Only colder. Include me. Like an afterthought. I didn't speak. Just nodded. Gripped the gift bag tighter. And stepped into the cool evening air. Back in the car, I placed the music box on the passenger seat and stared at it for a long moment. My name gleamed on its surface, Ka. The same name they now pretended didn't carry weight. The drive home blurred past in flashes of taillights and silence. I didn't cry. I didn't call Monica. I didn't even drink the wine I'd meant to bring to the table. Instead, I sat at my desk. Logged into the joint account I'd opened with them years ago, the one used during Dad's knee surgery, Mom's dental implants, Seraphine's emergency cosmetic procedure that no one ever repaid me for. I stared at the balance. Still enough to cover several family emergencies. Then, without a word, I moved every dollar to a private savings account I'd just opened under a new name. No shared access. No linked recovery emails. No trace. And then I closed it. Just like that. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting sharp lines across my bedroom floor. I hadn't slept much. My mind had been replaying the dinner. The music box. That hollow laugh Seraphine gave when she said I could visit. And now, my phone lit up with a string of messages. Missed call. Missed call. Text from Mom. Call me back ASAP. Another. Why did the account get locked? A third. Are you okay? Not a single one asked how I felt. Just why the money wasn't where they wanted it. I stared at the screen. Let it buzz once more. Then turned it face down. I needed to breathe. Needed to get away from that house. That energy. I threw on leggings, tied my sneakers, and headed toward Buffalo Bayou Park. The air still held a trace of morning cool. Joggers passed me. Dogs barked. Children laughed in the distance. Life moved on, oblivious to mine tipping over. As I walked, I kept hearing my mother's voice from last night in my head. Too ambitious, she'd said, as if it were a curse. I never thought ambition was a crime in this family, until it threatened someone else's spotlight. I showered, changed, and finally answered the call I'd been dodging all morning. Mom's voice cut through the speaker before I could even say hello. So you just decided to pull the plug on the account without a word? I exhaled. It was my money, Mom. A beat of silence, then sharper. Since you're making big girl decisions now, maybe it's time you live like one. What does that mean? I asked flatly. It's not healthy for you to hang around the house anymore. You're 34, Ka, and you've always been a bit intense. That word again. So you're kicking me out? I asked, though I already knew the answer. There was no response. Just a pause. Then Dad's voice slid into the call, low and measured. We just think it's better you give your sister some space to settle in. You understand? Click. No goodbye. No see you later. No we love you. Just click. It wasn't a confrontation. It wasn't even rage. It was dismissal in its most polished form, passive, surgical, final. I sat for a long time, staring at the screen. Then I stood up and started packing. I didn't have much at the house, just a few pieces of clothing, some files, and things I'd left behind during late work nights or weekend drop-ins. As I pulled open drawers, I found a card I had written Dad for Father's Day. Still sealed in the envelope. On the mantel, our family graduation photo sat centered like a trophy. Seraphine hadn't even shown up that day, but there she was in the photo, edited in. The only thing that stopped me was the music box. I picked it up, and put it right back down. I wasn't ready to bring that with me yet. That would come later. When I returned, not to visit, but to reclaim. By late afternoon, I was standing outside Monica's place. Her front door opened before I could even knock. "I brought snacks," she said, holding out a grocery bag. "And I've already made the bed in the guest room. Shoes off at the door. You know the rules." I laughed, first time that day. She led me inside, and I sank into her couch. The cushions, familiar and soft. "Safe. They kicked you out?" she asked, handing me a sparkling water. More like they packaged it as concern and shoved me out with a smile. Monica tilted her head. "They always hated that you didn't need them." "It's not about the condo," I said, staring down at the bubbles in my drink. "It's that they used it as a stage. A reminder that I'm never going to belong." "Not really." Monica placed a hand on my knee. "Stop trying to prove anything, Ka. You already did. Now protect yourself." That night, as I was getting ready for bed in Monica's guest room, my phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Seraphine. "Heard you moved out. Hope you're not planning to make this dramatic. This family doesn't reward drama." I stared at the screen. My chest didn't burn like before. My stomach didn't twist. I just sat there, completely still. Then I whispered into the quiet. "No. But I've learned how to respond to it." By the time morning crept through the cracks of the guest room blinds, I hadn't slept a minute. I just lay there, eyes open, watching light shift across the ceiling as thoughts circled like hawks. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even angry. But something inside me had hardened. Monica had already left for her early Pilates class. She'd left a note by the coffee maker. "Eat something, genius." I poured black coffee into a travel mug, ignored the toast she laid out, and sat at her kitchen table staring at my laptop. I clicked open a folder I hadn't touched in months, one I'd quietly named Family Transfers. It held the kind of record-keeping you do when you know people don't see you as someone to protect, but someone to drain. I'd started it 6 years ago, more out of habit than suspicion: loans to Dad when the AC broke, payments I'd made on Mom's medical bills when her insurance lapsed. Little things that turned into patterns. I opened my bank's online archive and started matching dates, one by one. Then I saw it, a $72,000 transfer out of my emergency fund into my parents' account. The date, just under a month before the condo closing. Seraphine had posted on Instagram with that ridiculous caption. "Blessed beyond words. A new chapter begins." The wire memo said, "Joint Family Reserve." Except, I'd never agreed to that. I'd never authorized the transfer. It was my money. And they gave it to her. A quiet kind of sickness settled in the pit of my stomach, like the floor had dropped out and left me suspended in a freefall I didn't even know I was in. I leaned back, blinked at the screen, then hit print. Monica walked in just as the printer whirred to life. "Wow, that's a face I haven't seen since we tanked our first pitch deck," she said, pulling off her sneakers. I turned the paper around for her to see. "Take a look at this." I matched it with the condo documents I found online. She skimmed the printout. Her brows lifted slightly, but she didn't look shocked. "They've been banking on you not noticing. Because they know you'd rather be loyal than loud." The way she said it, quiet, with just enough sadness, hit something raw in me. She was right. I had been loyal. Too loyal. And they'd interpreted my silence as permission. I rubbed the bridge of my nose, feeling the old ache behind my eyes. The one I used to get in college when I'd stay up too late fixing everyone else's group projects. No more, I murmured. No more benefit of the doubt. That sentence echoed in my head as I went back to the laptop and pulled up an old email archive. Buried between tax files and investor contracts was something I hadn't looked at in years, a letter from my father the day I got approved for my first business loan. I opened it. "You're so independent, honey. Just don't forget who helped raise you. Family comes first." At the time, I'd read it as loving encouragement. Now I saw it for what it was, a subtle threat. He wasn't celebrating my success. He was laying the foundation for lifelong guilt. That I owed them. That every dollar I made was somehow tied to their existence. And maybe it was, in the beginning. But they didn't build my company. They didn't sweat through those sleepless nights. I did. They raised me. Then they resented me for growing. I whispered to no one in particular. By late afternoon, I'd compiled a clean 3-page summary, all the financial support I'd given them since I was 25. Everything from rent payments to car repairs to Seraphine's bachelorette spa weekend, that they forgot I footed. I scanned each page and attached them to an email. Addressed to my lawyer. Subject line, protective steps. I hovered over the send button for a moment. Then I clicked. Done. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "Ka, please stop digging into things. It won't end well for anyone." I stared at the screen, the words flashing like a dare, not a plea. A warning. They weren't sorry. They were scared. And that, for the first time in a long time, gave me power. I didn't respond to my father's message. I didn't even screenshot it. I just stared at it for a long while, then tapped delete with the kind of calm that comes when clarity replaces grief. Later that morning, I drove downtown to meet with Miss Cordell, my lawyer. Her office sat on the 14th floor of a renovated Art Deco building near the courthouse, the kind of place that smelled like leather and ink and caution. She greeted me in that deliberate, controlled tone I had come to appreciate. No judgment. Just calculation. We sat across from each other in her conference room as she slid a folder my way. "These are the pulled records from the last 4 years, including the bank forms you asked us to trace." I thumbed through the document slowly. On the 3rd page, something caught my eye, a signature line I'd supposedly signed 6 months ago. A withdrawal form for $25,000. Authorized for transfer into Radiance PR Holdings. My sister's company. I blinked, then leaned closer. The signature looked like mine. But it wasn't. The strokes were too sharp. The curve on the K had none of my usual slant. It was like someone trying to imitate my name without fully knowing my hand. I didn't say anything at first. Miss Cordell folded her hands. "You recognize the discrepancy?" I nodded. My voice barely came out. "That's not mine." She didn't flinch. "It matches nothing else you've signed. That alone is cause for a full fraud report. If we dig into IP addresses and branch security footage, we can tie it to whoever submitted it." I sat back in my chair and closed my eyes for a moment. Letting the realization settle. Not just that my trust was broken, but that it had been manipulated. Signed away behind my back. And monetized. "That's identity theft," Cordell added quietly. "And frankly, Ka, you've been too generous." "But this? This isn't generosity. This is calculated." It wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was theft, coded in family sentiment and sold to me as duty. Back at Monica's, I recounted what we'd found. She didn't yell. Didn't gasp. Just poured me a glass of water, sat down, and said, "You know what they'd say if you called them out, right?" I nodded. "That I'm ungrateful. Dramatic. Hysterical." She leaned forward. Then don't give them the chance. Make your move where it counts, quietly. Precisely. I'm not showing up to cry or explain anymore, I told her. The next time I speak, it'll be with facts that leave no room for translation. The rest of the day blurred into a loop of document sorting, strategic emails, and small bites of cold toast between spreadsheets. I only broke my focus when my phone lit up again. This time, it was from my mother. Family dinner this Saturday. Please come. Let's be civil. I almost deleted it without thinking. But then I paused. Civil. That was the word they always used right before pushing me out of something they'd already planned without me. Still, I replied. Fine. I'll come. That Saturday evening, I arrived at my parents' house 15 minutes early, not because I wanted to be there, but because I wanted to control the optics. I wore a clean navy blouse, slacks, no jewelry except for the smartwatch that doubled as a recording device. I tapped once on the face and watched the red indicator blink to life. Dinner was a quiet affair. Roast beef. Asparagus. Wine no one could pronounce. They made small talk about Seraphine's latest brand expansion. My mother beamed like it was a royal achievement. Seraphine sat like a queen on her throne, arms draped across the back of her chair. Halfway through the meal, Seraphine dropped the real bomb. So, she said, with her signature fake humility. I just signed a new sponsorship deal with Grover Tech. I paused, fork midair. Grover Tech. Yeah, remember that startup you were chasing? Guess they needed a better public face. I didn't reply. Just chewed slowly. Let her words simmer like bad seasoning. I had pitched Grover Tech a partnership 6 months ago. They told me they weren't interested in controversial family narratives. Turns out they just wanted the name without the story. I set my napkin on the table. I know about the transfer, I said calmly. And the forged signature. My mother blinked. Seraphine's wine glass slipped in her grip and clinked against the plate. My father, for the first time that night, looked directly at me. You're misremembering, sweetheart, he said. I tilted my head slightly. Almost curious. No, I replied, voice steady. I'm just done misplacing forgiveness. The silence after my words was heavy enough to drown in. For a moment, no one moved. No clinking of silverware. No shallow coughs. Not even the scrape of a chair leg. Just 4 people seated around a dinner table that suddenly felt like a jury box. My mother broke the tension first, forcing a brittle chuckle as she dabbed her lips with a linen napkin. Ka, this is family, not a courtroom. I met her eyes, calm and steady. Then maybe you should stop acting like you've got something to hide. My father shifted in his seat, his brow lowering. Seraphine looked like she was calculating something behind her lashes. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. For once, I didn't give them an emotional inch. That's when it started, the gaslight performance they had perfected for years. You're overreacting. Dad said with a sharpness barely concealed behind his feigned concern, this is what ambition does. It isolates you. You're tearing this family apart. There it was. My mother joined in, voice soft but cutting. Ka, nobody ever asked you to work the way you do. You made those choices. All we ever wanted was for you to be happy. I felt my spine go stiff. I looked at her, this woman who had once braided my hair before piano recitals, now rewriting my life into some selfish crusade. You watched me work 3 jobs in college while Seraphine lived rent-free downtown and you never asked why. You just smiled when the checks cleared. She looked away. The room started to tilt, not literally, but in the way truth knocks balance off the table. I reached under my seat and pulled out a slim black folder I'd placed there the moment I sat down. It wasn't bulky, Just 3 sheets. Cold, hard math. I laid it down right between the roasted carrots and the salt shaker. I brought something too, I said quietly. Seraphine narrowed her eyes. What's that supposed to mean? I didn't answer her. Instead, I turned to my father. You remember signing that joint account with me after college? The one you told me was just a safety net. He didn't reply. That account was used to transfer $25,000 to Radiance PR, I said. 6 months ago. With a forged signature. Seraphine's lips parted like she might deny it, but I didn't give her room. And the down payment on your condo? That came from my emergency fund. You knew that. You all did. My mother finally spoke again, this time barely above a whisper. Sweetheart, if you needed money, why didn't you just ask? We've always been here. That line, we've always been here, tasted like ash. I stood slowly, picked up my folded napkin, and laid it directly on top of the folder. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't make a scene. This ends now, I said. If the condo isn't transferred back to my name, if another dollar leaves any account tied to me, if my name shows up on any more forged authorizations, I'll proceed with legal action. You'd go that far? Seraphine whispered, blinking fast, trying to drum up sympathy. I turned to her, eyes level. You stole. You lied. And then you cried your way into applause. Don't act shocked, I finally brought receipts. My father's chair creaked as he leaned forward. You'll regret doing this. We're still your family. I tilted my head slightly, not angry, just done. No, I said. You were my family until you traded me for a tax write-off in heels. Seraphine's mouth dropped, her fingers tightening around her wine stem. My mother, predictably, gave the final guilt push. You're being cruel, she said. I paused, absorbing her words the way one might observe rain streaking down a windshield, distant, already moving past. No, I said. I'm just done being convenient. I turned and walked to the door. My steps were steady. Slow. I didn't slam anything. Didn't shout. That's the part they'll never understand, how silence can echo louder than rage. In the driveway, I sat behind the wheel and exhaled through my teeth. Then I texted Cordell. They didn't take it seriously. Let's proceed. The buzz of the text faded into the quiet hum of the room. Monica was sitting across from me, legs curled under her on the couch, sipping lukewarm chamomile tea. I had just sent the message to Cordell and the only sound was the faint tick of the wall clock. They didn't take it seriously. Let's proceed, I'd written, and I meant every word. The next morning, the legal machine started to move. Cordell and I sat in her firm's polished conference room, paperwork spread between us like a map of buried betrayal. Her expression was calm, efficient, but every so often I saw it, pity. Not for what I was doing, but for what had clearly been done to me. We're filing the cease and desist today, she said, double-checking the envelope. Then the complaint will follow, identity misuse, unauthorized transfers, and property tied to your earnings. I nodded, my eyes dry but my stomach taut. They always assumed I'd just swallow it. Stay quiet. Keep the peace. Cordell adjusted her glasses. They forgot you were the one funding the piece. While she handled the paperwork, I called Monica. She was already a step ahead, forwarding archived emails where Seraphine had copied my pitches verbatim and used them to broker deals with PR clients. One email, dated 6 months back, even had my name still in the metadata. Monica's voice was sharp through the line. She's not even subtle. They've been using your name, your money, and your silence. That word again. Silence. It used to be survival. Now it tasted like rot. By afternoon, I was back at Monica's house, curled up with my laptop and a bowl of cereal I hadn't touched. That's when my phone buzzed again, a notification. Facebook. Seraphine had posted a sprawling message. A photo of her standing beside my parents, arms folded in front of that damn penthouse balcony. Sometimes ambition blinds us. We tried, so hard, to keep her in the family. But when someone chooses ego over love, what can you do? We forgive, even when we're hurt. The post had over 300 likes within hours. The comments trickled in like acid rain. Praying for your family. Wow. Never knew she could be like that. She always did seem distant. Then came the one that stung more than the rest, shared by my mother. A Bible verse, honor thy father and thy mother, with the caption, even when it's hard. I didn't cry. Not right away. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred, then I stood up, walked to the guest room, and shut the door. That's where Monica found me half an hour later, sitting cross-legged on the floor, the music box in my hands. I had opened it again, hoping the soft tune would ground me like it used to when I was a child. But this time, it sounded off. Hollow. Like a melody struggling to mean something. They're painting me as a monster, I whispered. And people believe it. Monica sat beside me, her presence steady. Let them talk. You've got proof. You've got power. You've got you. Her words were strong, but in that moment, I felt like I was breaking apart in silence. Grief. Rage. Betrayal. They weren't loud feelings. They were quiet, steady fractures. I didn't sleep much that night. At dawn, my phone lit up with a name I hadn't seen in years, Richard Lyons. A business mentor from back when I was still building my second property investment model. We hadn't spoken in 3 years. His message was short. Ka, I saw the post. If they're coming after you like this, you must be doing something right. If you need a break, there's a cabin in Santa Fe with your name on it. Keys are under the brick planter. That was the first moment in days where something inside me lifted. Not joy, but readiness. I texted back, I might just take you up on that. By that evening, Monica and I were sitting at the kitchen island when her doorbell rang. She checked the porch camera and laughed once. It's a courier. Certified envelope. Guess someone got served. Inside the envelope, a copy of the formal cease and desist, a property freeze request, and a comprehensive list of forged transactions and their legal implications. We watched the porch camera again an hour later. My father stood on his front step, opening the same envelope. His jaw tightened. He pulled out his phone and dialed. I let it ring. He didn't leave a voicemail. Monica looked at me, half smiling. They thought you were bluffing. I leaned back in the chair, feeling something shift inside. Not vengeance. Not satisfaction. Something cleaner. Firmer. Good, I said. Let them keep thinking that. Nora was glowing, and just when dessert was served, Seraphine stood, lifted her glass, and tapped the rim. Before we finish, she said with a bright smile, can we just give a little round of applause to Kaya for teaching us all how not to let ambition ruin family dinners? Laughter scattered awkwardly around the room. I heard someone near the back mutter, wait, was that a joke? I stood slowly, took the mic out of her hand without asking. You know what's really funny? I said, my voice steady. That penthouse you parade like a prize, it was paid for with money stolen from me. Silence slammed across the room like a door. And this? I reached into my handbag and pulled out the folder. This is the documentation proving it, including forged withdrawals from an account only I was supposed to access. I walked to the gift table, laid the folder gently on top of the presents, and turned back to face them. You used my name, my finances, my silence, and then you humiliated me in public to protect your lie. Gasps broke the stillness. Whispers passed like wildfire. My mother stood so fast her chair scraped back against the tile. Ka, stop this. You'll ruin us. I turned toward her. I'm not ruining anything. I'm just pointing at what's already rotting. My father tried to step forward. Now wait a minute. I cut him off, voice sharp. You forged my signature. You misused my savings. And you had the audacity to shame me for refusing to stay quiet. Seraphine's face had lost all color. She took a step back, clutching her purse like a shield. From the far corner, Monica was already recording, her expression unreadable, but her presence gave me weight. People began to stir, murmur. Some guests were already standing, glancing toward the exit. But I wasn't done. I filed a civil complaint, I said clearly, and more's coming. The theft, the forgery, it's not just a family matter anymore. It's criminal. My mother let out a soft sob. My father stared at the floor. Seraphine shook her head like she could undo the moment by disbelief. I placed the microphone down, picked up my handbag, walked slowly, steadily toward the door. And just as I reached it, a woman I didn't recognize, one of Nora's friends, maybe, hurried after me. She touched my arm gently and whispered, "I'm so glad someone finally said it." I nodded, not quite trusting my voice yet. Outside, the air felt cleaner, or maybe I was just lighter. Link to next chapter. I'm so glad someone finally said it. By the time I got home that night, the weight of what had happened was beginning to settle, not as a burden, but as a finality. I left my heels at the front door, stepped into the quiet of Monica's living room, and reached into my handbag. The music box had been with me that entire evening, untouched. I took it out and placed it gently on the table. I sat for a long time before opening it. The familiar tune played, the same one I remembered from childhood. But something had shifted. The melody didn't soothe anymore. It clarified. It reminded me that even beauty can carry the weight of betrayal. The next morning, I was pouring coffee when my phone rang. I recognized the number, Cordell's direct line. "We found something," she said without preamble. "It's from your grandmother's trust." I stopped stirring. She had a clause, one buried in the footnotes of the original filing. "It names you, Ka. You were supposed to inherit a development property portfolio in Arizona." My voice caught. "What?" "Your parents filed an amendment in 2017. It altered the disclosure paperwork. But under scrutiny, we've confirmed that the trust clause predates the amendment, and the amendment itself was signed using a notary who no longer worked at the law firm at that time." I sat down. "So they rewrote my future before I even knew it existed?" "Yes," Cordell said softly. "And now with this, they may have crossed into felony fraud." The words swam around me. For years, I thought I was just unwanted. It turned out I was inconvenient. I had been written out not because I lacked value, but because I had too much of it. "Proceed," I told her. "I don't want headlines. I just want the truth filed properly." "Quiet strength," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "Got it." That afternoon, while Cordell moved forward with filings and reviewed the tax history of the trust, I worked from the co-working space Monica and I used during our startup days. The space had old wood floors and high ceilings. It smelled like resilience. Monica walked in just after lunch, holding her laptop and a look of triumph. "You're going to want to see this," she said. She had pulled together archived emails, timestamps, and legal correspondences that reinforced the trust's original intent. With this, Cordell had a nearly airtight argument. I stared at the screen, both grateful and gutted. "They didn't just take what was mine," I said quietly. They built my sister's future with it. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the buildings, I got a video message from Seraphine. She looked wrecked. The glossy, PR-perfect face was gone. Her hair was tied in a messy bun, her voice shaky. Why are you doing this? You won. Do you want me to lose everything? I stared at her through the screen for a moment. I saw the sister I used to pretend I had. But illusions are powerful because they're built on hope, not reality. I typed back, I never wanted you to lose. I just wanted you to stop taking what was never yours. She read it. Didn't reply. The next morning, a knock at the office door startled me. It was my father. He looked smaller than I remembered. Age doesn't always show in the face, sometimes it shows in posture. We'll transfer the condo, he said before I could speak. We'll cooperate. Just don't go to court. I didn't offer him a seat. Instead, I held up the old family photo album he had left behind in a box years ago. I had found it while packing up my mother's garage during a forgotten birthday weekend. You didn't protect your daughter, I said. You protected the one who performed for you. His lips tightened. You were always too much. I smiled, not cruelly, but with all the clarity I had earned. And that's what made me dangerous to people who wanted me small. He left without shaking my hand. Later that week, the final documents confirming the trust restoration were approved. The property portfolio was being reassigned under my name. I could have sold it. I could have held it as a reminder of what I'd reclaimed. Instead, I called a friend in Santa Fe, asked to be connected with an organization that worked with young women who had been downed, discarded, or cut off for choosing ambition over obedience. I created a fund, a small one at first, but deeply personal. I named the first scholarship the Music Box Grant. Monica raised an eyebrow. That's poetic. Not just poetic, I said. It's a symbol of what I carried with me, even when they tried to erase me. Before we left the office for the day, Monica paused at the door. Do you think they'll come after you again? I looked at her, calm, certain. Let them try. I'm not a threat anymore. I'm the consequence. The headlines died down. The lawyers stopped calling. Even Monica said it out loud one morning over breakfast. It's quiet now. And for once, I believed her. Weeks had passed since the trust case was finalized. The civil settlement had been filed with minimal press, just as I'd instructed. I wasn't looking to ruin lives. I was looking to restore one, mine. I had moved into my own space, a clean, sun-drenched condo overlooking Buffalo Bayou. No gifts. No inheritance. No strings. Just me and the key I signed for with my own name, on my own terms. On my desk sat two things, the old music box and a white envelope, slightly wrinkled at the corners, bearing my mother's handwriting. It had arrived days before the trust papers were officially returned to me. I hadn't opened it right away. Part of me was afraid it would be cruel. Part of me was afraid it wouldn't say anything at all. But that morning, with the music box gently ticking beside me, I finally peeled it open. Her handwriting was familiar, fluent in loops and hesitation. You were always different. I didn't know how to love you without trying to tame you. I thought Seraphine needed protection. But it was you I made invisible. I can't ask for forgiveness, but I hope someday you'll understand that my silence wasn't strength. It was fear. I read the letter once, then again. Then I folded it slowly, tucked it under the lid of the music box, and clicked it shut. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just exhaled. It wasn't an apology, but it was honest. Maybe, for once, that was enough. 3 days later, I stood on a small stage inside a community center in Houston. It wasn't glamorous. No velvet ropes. No cocktail dresses. Just folding chairs and soft lighting. The room was filled with young women, some barely out of college, others with eyes that looked far older than their age. They had all applied. They had all been chosen. The music box grant had become real. Monica stood beside me and introduced me to the audience. "This woman," she said, "turned betrayal into a blueprint." I stepped forward, not as a daughter, not as a sister, not even as a victim, but as myself. For every daughter told she's too loud, too ambitious, too much, may you always be just enough for yourself. The applause wasn't loud, but it was real. And it filled the space between my ribs in a way I hadn't felt in years. Later, after the last handshake and selfie, I stepped outside to get some air. The sun was setting in streaks of lavender and gold. That's when I saw her, Seraphine. She stood across the street. Not in heels or designer coats, but in jeans and a plain blouse. No driver. No publicist. No ring of admirers. Just her. She saw me, but she didn't wave. She opened the door to an old gray sedan and got in without a glance back. I didn't call out. I didn't chase her. I whispered to myself, we both had to lose something. I just learned how to rebuild. That night, after I returned home, I placed the folded letter back into the box and locked it for the last time. On my dining table sat a folder labeled Phase 2, National Expansion. Before turning off the lights, I took one last look at the music box. They called me ungrateful for not funding their dreams, I said quietly. They never realized I had one too. I stepped outside into the warm Houston night, folder in hand, ambition no longer a wound but a compass. No applause. No spotlight. Just 4 words. Sometimes the deepest betrayals come not from strangers, but from the people who once rocked you to sleep. Ka's story reminds us, setting boundaries isn't cruelty, it's healing. Have you ever had to walk away from your own family to find peace? Let us know in the comments. I read every one.